All right, so welcome to this exciting Blender tutorial. I hope you're pumped. Today we're going to be making an ionic storm. Let's do it. Okay, so this is a cool one that we've just come up with. Just voted in chat to make this. Just got a fresh Blender scene with Blender 2.9. How exciting is that? The new Blender. Woo, pretty pumped. This is going to be really fun. So I'll just give you this preamble. I have no idea what I'm doing, and this could be a complete disaster, but that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Because, you know, if I go down in flames, then you guys get to have a lot of fun. So the idea is we want to do some kind of ionic storm shader. So a shader that we can somehow generate some kind of smoky thing that has electricity in it. I can see it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really goes a long way to helping people find it. I don't know if you've noticed, but this channel is pretty small. I mean, compared to like some of the other Blender channels out there. And I think we can do a lot better. I think we can grow it a lot more. I'm keen to get more people aware of it. So the more you hit that like button and subscribe and comment and all that stuff, the more people find out about it. Also, another big thing, I don't know if you know this, something I'm learning about with YouTube. If you watch the whole video, it actually helps a lot. So just open all my videos and play them in the background of your computer when you're not doing other stuff. So I'm just gonna create a sphere. So Shift-A to add, I'm gonna go UV sphere, and then I right click on it to shade smooth, just to get rid of that faceted polygon look. Okay, now, this is gonna be a shader. So we're gonna set up a view so that we can really tweak stuff really well. So I'm gonna split my view by coming over to the corner, you get that little plus symbol. That's how you know you can drag out. You can drag out as many windows as you want. I'm really over explaining things. I should tone that down a bit. Now I've just had a cold, by the way, and I lost my voice. So I've had no voice for like 3 days. So I'm kind of tempting fate today. This might go on me, so hopefully not. I've got some water. We should be fine. Just had enough coffee to last me a lifetime. Okay, so the other thing is I haven't used 2.9 yet, so there's going to be new things in here that I don't know what they do, so that might cause some problems. We got a new material. I just clicked here, go to your materials, click new material, and I'm going to call this ionic storm, just so I don't lose track of what we're actually doing. And we're going to switch over to rendered view. Now I'm going to use Eevee for this. Just like that. I'm going to get rid of all the visual stuff, the little handles and controls and stuff. I'm going to hit the T key to get rid of that side bit. You can also just click that little arrow to make it appear or disappear. Now, what I want to do with this is I want to experiment with making this shader, and I want to use some of the volume settings in this material properties. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to create just let's create a Voronoi shader. I think that's going to be what's going to set us right. Although Ionic Storm's got like clouds and stuff. So let's start with the cloud. So best way to get a cloud, Shift-A, and let's grab let's type in noise. Noise texture. And what we're going to do with this noise texture is I'm just going to create an emission node just to kind of help me see what's going on. And I'll drag it into the color, and I'll drag this into the volume, okay? Now I'll just untick this. Give it a second. Now when you add anything, turn anything into a volume, what you're gonna do is you'll see it's become a cube, right? So our little sphere just became a cube. That's always gonna happen. Volumes are always calculated as a cube. And it's really important to kind of keep that in mind. If you want to create shape within your volume, what you need to do is use different types of noise materials and stuff to kind of sculpt it. So I'll show you how that works. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to create a color ramp node so that I can control my color a little bit. I'm going to come right in here, and I'm going to drag this in. And as I drag this in, it's going to basically get darker and darker. And because we're piping this into the color, it means that part of our material is going to get dark based on the shape of what this noise texture looks like. So you can see now we're cutting away sections of our cloud material. So there we go. So I can take my sphere and I can scale it up to give us a little bit more to look at. So now I've got this like 3D cube cloud looking thing, which is what we're going for. And let me just play with the scale a little bit. I might try something like this. And I'll take the color and I'll actually pipe this into the strength instead, right? What we'll do, you can see we get the same effect, right? Because basically we're using an emission shader, and we're saying don't emit anything out of this black area, but emit stuff out of the white. So that's why it looks the same. Now I can Shift D to duplicate this color ramp, drag it here, give myself a little room, and pop that there, pop that into here, and now let's drag this all the way out, and let's think about what kind of colors we want to use for this thing. Let's do it like that. I'll start with like a bluish kind of color. I'm also going to go ahead and make my world black. So in the little globe icon, color, click that, drag it down, 0, because now it's black. It looks really good. Now let's add another bit here. So click that. I'm going to just make this bright, and I'm going to find maybe another, I don't know, let's do like a green maybe. That could be kind of cool. Drag that in there. So it's like green and blue. What we can do is we can create a gradient node, a gradient texture node, switch it to spherical, all right? And now I'm gonna just bypass this whole system for a minute. I'll create another emission shader, just pipe this into the volume, and I'll grab this and pipe this into the color so we can have a look at it. Now you can see what it does is it's created this like a corner of a half circle basically. Now if I bring in a texture coordinate node, by default, it's using the generated. So you can see you get the same look when you use generated. If I use object, it's going to use the actual object. So now I get this perfect sphere in 3D space, but it's a volume. So this has nothing to do with the fact that our object is a sphere. So our object could be a cube, and if we did the same thing, it would still look like this. So the idea is it's just taking, object just basically takes the UV coordinates or the position of the object. So it's taking the center position of the object, and it's using that to then generate this gradient texture, which is here, which is spherical, right? So it doesn't matter what your geometry looks like for this. It's always going to do this. So what we can do is use this to kind of mask out this, because we can multiply this with this. Now remember, with multiplication, if you multiply 0 with any number, what do you get? You get 0. That's right. So if we want to have a 0 emission, or like a black section of our cloud, we need to multiply it by the number 0 to get rid of it. And we've got a lot of zeros here on the outside of this sphere, and everything else is 1, and we get this little gradient between the two. So let's take a math node, because math is cool. Yep. And let's pop this into here, and what we're going to do is switch this to multiply, and now we need to take, we don't need to worry about the color, we can just grab the strength, because the strength is kind of what we're using to determine whether or not we can see this thing. So now if I bring that like this and pipe this back into the volume, now you can see it's going to be a sphere shape. Pretty awesome. Let's delete that. Let's grab a gradient, a color ramp. Now we can adjust even more. We could like make the edges hard, or we could make it smaller, or we could brighten out the inner bits like this. Now it's going to look very sphere-y. Now we could probably get away as well with grabbing another noise texture like this and mixing it with the input of this texture coordinate. This is kind of a cool advanced technique, all right? This technique is basically, you gotta remember with vectors, vectors are always how you're telling your texture to be placed, how you're telling things to be positioned in 3D space, right? I can feel my, my voice going already. What we can do is we can introduce noise into these numbers to create slight variations in the way it's positioning stuff. So if I was to take this noise shader and go here and go for a mix RGB. Now that's a bit confusing, right? Because you were saying mix RGB, a color, right? We're mixing colors, but we're not, we're mixing these vectors. Remember, colors are just 3 numbers, red, green, and blue, and alpha channels sometimes, right? So it can be 4 numbers. A vector is just a set of numbers. And position data, X, Y, and Z are also just a set of numbers. So it's really the same stuff. So we can take this factor, pipe it into the second color. You could also use the color, I guess. I mean, why not? And we'll just turn it off for now, right? So now it's not affecting it at all. But if I slowly turn this up, I'll zoom in a bit so we can see this thing. It will, slowly turn this up. It will slowly affect our setup. So I can just do it a little bit just to kind of break it up. So it's not this like perfect sphere. Anyways, kind of cool. Let's drop the scale down. Now I feel like our colors are a bit off, and also we need to make some brighter sections. So let's take a math node. We want to increase the value, the strength of the emission. So it's brighter in some areas and darker in others. We can use that by multiplying our strength value with something. And as we increase that number, that something, everything gets brighter. So if we switch this to multiply, and we take the color, and I'll just put it to 1 right now, so it's not going to change anything. Bring it in here, and then if I turn this number up, it's going to get brighter and brighter. If I turn on bloom, you'll really see it. There we go. But we don't need that yet. We could probably also go ahead and go into our render settings for volumetrics. I'm going to turn up my N just so I don't accidentally lose it. I'm going to switch my tile size to 2. And that's going to give me more resolution. All right, so let's create a Voronoi shader. Voronois are nice. Start with the distance value and see what that looks like. And also grab a color ramp just so we can control what we're seeing. All right, so you got to understand what the Voronoi does. So the Voronoi shader, basically what it does is it creates random points in 3D space, right? And it creates a sphere around each of those points, and it kind of fades away that sphere. Wherever those spheres overlap is where it starts to shade in. And that's what these options are. They're basically, how do you handle the look of the shader when things overlap? So if I go to like Minkowski, I'll have to may not be able to see it. It might be just too bright. Try flipping them. Yeah, there we go. You can see we get all these like star shapes. And basically what that is, that's where all these spheres are overlapping in 3D space. Now we can use this to do some cool stuff. I think Euclidean's going to be what we want. Let's try F2. And I'm going to create a third node here. And I'll make that third node black so that we can basically isolate a section of it. You can see we're getting these circles, right? You can kind of see what the effect is, like what it's doing, what the math behind it's doing when you see it like this. I might decrease the scale down to like 1 so we can really see it. So we're getting these weird 3D circles. Now the theory is we should be able to use this, create some kind of lightning. If we just look hard enough, we can play around with where we position these things, play around with what we choose to reveal and what we choose to not reveal with this. Drag this all the way to the front. Okay, so you can see we're getting these like kind of broken, cracky bit things. Let's grab a texture coordinate and let's try object real quick, see how that changes it. It's really just going to change the scale and the way it's positioned. Now let's do that little trick we were doing earlier with this mix node. And bring that in, and I'm going to create a noise texture. Just get rid of that principled BSDF. We don't need him. And I'll take the color, and let's just see if we turn this up. Do you see how that works? How it's giving us these little like jaggies, like it's kind of making it even more jagged. Looks more like electricity now, you know? Now, if we switch this thing from 3D to 4D, we get this extra W value, which we can use to animate this. So like if I hold down Shift and drag it, it means it'll move the numbers slower for us. So we can have some cool kind of electricity effects going on. All right, now we got to combine them, right? We need to get this to combine with the volume shader that we have in order to have this sort of electric ball thing. So let's just go ahead and we'll combine them now and see what it's looking like. So also probably let's think about some color for this. So let's use this with the strength, not the color, so we can have a separate one to control the color. So color ramp. There we go. Pipe that in here. And let's go with like kind of like a hyper blue color, like this maybe. Actually, I'll just bring it down a bit more white. And then we can just crank the strength up, right, by using that math node trick. So math, drop it right into here, switch this to multiply. Don't want to clamp on, because we don't want it to clamp at 1. We want it to go past 1. And so I'll just turn that up. Turn it way up. All right, so now let's combine these. So we have two separate groups that we want to combine, right? We could use a mix shader, but I kind of want to Maybe that is a good idea, actually. Maybe we should mix shader these guys. Let's try that first. We'll go mix shader. And just turn it all the way up and pop them in. See what that looks like first. All right, yeah, so that doesn't quite work. So let's get rid of the mix shader. We want to use just one emission shader. We'll keep the multiply node in here just in case we want to control the strength a little bit. And there's the color, that's right. So let's grab this up here. So this is the color for our clouds, and this is the strength of our clouds. This is the strength of our lightning, and this is the color of our lightning. So we need to mix the strengths together first. So let's go for a mix, or actually we just go math. It's probably all we need to do. And we can add these together. So I can take this one and this one, add them together, and go to that. And wait, that was the strength, wasn't it? Yep. So pipe that to the strength and then stick that into the volume. Now what I can do is I can take the colors and do the same thing. So I can take these guys and let's see, do we want to add these together or, so let's go mix RGB. Take the first one and the second one, and let's set this to add. Turn the factor all the way up, and we'll bring this into the color. So now we have lightning inside of Ionic Cloud. Now, you notice the lightning is appearing outside of the cloud, right? Because we've got the sphere, which is controlling stuff, and it's kind of blocking these guys. Well, no, sorry, the sphere is not affecting our lightning guys. So we should probably use that same system to do that. Now, it's starting to get a little bit messy over here, but that's all right. We don't have time to be organized. Let's see. Let's grab our, where is our gradient texture? So this is the one we're using to cut out the lightning, and then we've set it like this, and we multiply it like, so let me grab another multiply node, sorry, not a multiply node, a math node. Drag that here, set that to multiply, and I'll grab this here, and that will multiply this with this. So this is, remember the sphere thing, that mat that we created, the mask, the sphere mask. This is our lightning shape, and we've multiplied the two, so the zeros of this have knocked out the lightning. So, and because it's going into the strength of our shader, it just basically turns it off. All right, let's see if we can push this thing further. Because remember, everything with computer animation, Blender, anything you're using, it's all about pushing it really far. You know, if you stop too soon, your stuff's gonna look like this, right? If we go further, we might be able to get somewhere. Let's have a bit more of a complex shader for this. I'm gonna grab a volume scatter, and actually let's go principled volume. Get a principled volume shader. This is a lot more advanced for us, and might help us to get a bit more interest in what's going on. So at the moment, if I plug, let's see, the emission strength here, go ahead and plug this in as my volume, and then I take this as my emission color. All right, so now our density is actually going to affect things. So you can see things are getting darker, right? Whereas if I turn it down, density is fine. So density is basically like, you know, thick parts of the cloud, they're gonna block the light. We're gonna want two systems like this. And so I'll pipe this factor in here. So I'm just duplicating my setup. I'm not gonna worry about a multiply node for this one. Because I don't feel like I'm gonna need it just yet. I might in a bit, but I'm getting a bit far away here, so it's a little hard to get right. But I'm gonna bring this color right up and stick it into the density. And for the color of my actual cloud, I'm gonna use the same color that I have here. So I'll bring this in and pipe that into the color. And I'll go ahead and delete that emission node because we don't need that anymore. All right, now I can play with this one to change the density of our overall setup. I might need that multiply node after all. So let's do that. I'll just Shift D, do to duplicate, drag this here, and now we're gonna multiply it by value to crank up the power. Now I'm just playing with it. Just having a look at some of the effects that we could get out of this thing. So I'm going to go Shift A, light. I'm going to go a sun lamp, and I will rotate it around. And I'll go ahead and turn on under volumetrics, volumetric lighting, and volumetric shadows. And now I'm going to come to my light settings, and I'm going to turn this thing right up, get it nice and bright. So you can see now that our lighting's being blocked, right, by the clouds in really cool ways. So let's, I could probably even turn up my roughness now. And I can turn down my multiplication here for the density. So now this color ramp is able to help us control what parts are dense, what parts aren't. Turn our scale down a bit. I feel like our lighting could be a little bit crazier, so I'm going to go up here to my factor for the lightning and just turn up the amount of noise that we get. All right, so now let's work on our colors a little bit better. Let's come back over here. I'm going to drop this down to more of like a dark purple. I'll grab this one and drop it down too. Maybe move it out a little bit so we get some of that green in there. I don't really feel like our sphere is working anymore, which is a bit weird. So maybe what I should do is I should take our, take this, multiply, and go down to grab the color, pipe that into it. Hopefully that will, all right, it does. Yeah, sweet. There we go. Now what we'll do is we'll just turn up this factor again to kind of make it a little irregular. And turn this one up to get thicker bits of cloud. Play with this one to get more nebula. All right, let's finish this off, create a camera. Jump into camera view. Now let's find a cool angle. And we could probably like get away with sticking, you know, maybe like a point light as well in the scene for some final touches. And then what we can do is take our shader and go down to the anisotropy. If we drop this down, get some really nice kind of lighting effects. It's my lightning color. That's right, this is the lightning color. Just in summary, the way I've landed on this look, with all the, I've just been tweaking and playing around with these numbers, and what I ended up going with was I ended up taking the, first of all, I took the lightning and I turned it right down. So I was multiplying it by a really large number, like 20, to really like crank it up so it was super bright. I brought it right back down to like 3.9, and that kind of made it more subtle, and I think that was a good effect. The other thing I did is I just played around with the scale and the W value of the lightning, and I ended up liking a scale of 0.2 on my mapping node, and then mixing in a noise texture for a factor of like 0.139, and the scale on that guy is 7.1, detail was 4, and that just kind of, you know, introduced just a little bit of noise. And then I went with just played with the Voronoi texture a bit until I got this like 1.35 scale and a W of negative 0.19. So I've just shifted it a little bit. W is really a positional thing, and that's if I jump out of my camera view. So take that, close this. Jump out, we can have a look at what the thing's looking like as a whole. You can see it's pretty cool, like it holds up even from a distance. There's this like cascading section of charge that's kind of pulsing through this huge field of cloud. I turned off our sphere. You could always turn that back on to get it more of a spherical shape. But yeah, I mean, this could be really fun to play with in a scene. Hope you had a lot of fun, and I hope you really enjoyed learning how to put something like this together. Hope you got some great tips for yourself to use on your own. And yeah, thanks again for joining and checking this out. And feel free to like and subscribe. Don't forget to do that to the channel. It really helps it grow, really helps more people find out about it. Check out the Patreon. It's a great way to support what I'm doing. And also the Blender Market. We've got some new stuff there, which is really fun. I'm going to put this project file up on Patreon. Thanks again for checking it out. Hope you had a lot of fun, and I will catch you in the next tutorial. See you later. Bye.